About 6 months ago is when I received the text from my father telling me not to come back to our family business. I worked at that store my whole life. I grew up in it. I really wanted it to do good, succeed, and I wanted that for my father too. And it seemed like suddenly none of that mattered. And the weird thing was, that text really isn't the start of the story. It's more like the end of a chapter that I had been living for a long time. One that was already pretty complicated. And before that even happened, I learned things about my dad and his life as I got older that made it really hard to connect with him on. There was a woman that worked there for a lot of years, and I chalked it up to just being a loyal employee, when in reality, her loyalty was to my father because of a relationship that was not just business. And that hurt to know because it's against everything I believe morally. And once he found out later on about me knowing, that's where things got really complicated. We were in business together, co-workers, and worked together every day. But at the same time, it was like we were estranged, I guess. He distanced himself from me, and I really couldn't figure out why. It later seemed obvious that that was the reason, is that he was choosing to live that life other than the one he had with me. So I started to deal with some things and struggle mentally. And it wasn't just the store. It was just life in general. I really was just questioning things about life. And maybe that's just a part of getting older and being a father myself. I just started to question everything. So I went to him for advice, like I always had, because he was my hero, somebody I always looked up to. I really tried to be like him in every way. And he always gave me advice that I could usually count on. And despite having asking him for any advice for a while due to our current relationship, I went to him in a moment of desperation for advice. Once I walked in our office to talk to him, he didn't even look at me. there was the most tension in that room that I had ever felt in my life. And in my mind, there was really no reason for it. I went in there for help, and the conversation immediately got turned to him telling me that I don't care about him or the store or anybody else but myself. I tried and tried to get through to him and convince him otherwise. But no matter what I did, I just couldn't get through to him. And I thought that maybe in a moment of desperation to keep our relationship alive, I told him how dark my struggles were. But he didn't care. It almost as if he didn't even hear any of that. I knew I was fighting a losing battle. So I just got up and I just left. And I really wanted him to know that the way he thinks I felt about him was not true whatsoever. So when I left, I was sure to let him know before I walked out that if I had lived 100 lives, then I would have chosen him to be my father in every one of them. And his answer wasn't one that I expected. His reply. It was pretty much the only time that he looked at me during that whole conversation. And he turned to me and replied with, "That doesn't mean anything to me, Aaron." Looking back now, I can see that that was a major turning point in my life. Things really started to change for me. And honestly, a lot of the questions that I had about life were being answered. I had to get out of the mindset that the store was my life and it was going to be the only part of it. I got to open my eyes to a lot of things. And it was tough. And being a father myself, I really couldn't understand how he could do that and say the things that he said. I have a son. And there's nothing in this world that could have made me treat him the way that my father treated me, my hero. Shortly after that, I tried to think of what to do. I've always been a man about things, I've always said that you should base what you do off of what needs to be done rather than what you feel like doing. And I was at a point where I didn't know what to do anymore. So I knew that if I just did something, didn't matter what it was, that it would be beneficial in some way. It would be the right direction to go in. I've always tried to tell other people that raw action solves everything. And I guess you could say it was my turn to really live that out. So I just turn towards my kids and focus everything on them. They mentioned something about a tree house. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna build one. I didn't have any plans. I've never built anything. I didn't know the first thing about how to build one. But it seems like before I knew it, something that was just there to keep my mind busy was finished. And it ended up being one of the things that I'm most proud of. Especially when I got to see the look on my kid's face once it was done. We all spent the night in there and watched TV in there and had popcorn. And it was one of the greatest feelings. Even in a moment as dark and hard as my situation was with my father and my career, everything just kind of seemed to open my eyes to what actually mattered in life. And I was just grinding and grinding to try to get somewhere that didn't even matter. My kids and the people that are around me, and the ones that want to be in my life, those are the ones that matter. And I hope that being in my life is going to benefit them even more now. I feel a sense of relief from the store and everything that happened to it. The hurt's always going to be there. That's probably never going to go away. And I know that I have to use it in a positive way and build more things, build my life, build my relationships with my kids and everyone around me. And going forward, I really don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Thanks for listening.